Now that I have set up my A3 page, what I'm going to do, or what I want to do, is I'm going to insert 3 images here, and then I'm going to add a caption for each of those. So I'm going to start by using or setting up some guides to help me create a really even layout. So across the top of your screen, you should see the rulers visible, okay, across the top of your page. Where the rulers are, I'm going to click and drag down, and a guideline starts to appear. Now, as I move it across my page, it will give me a dimension. So it's telling me that the y-axis is 148.5 millimeters at this particular point in time. So if I move my mouse back up to that 10 millimeter margin line, we can see y equals 10. I am going to bring it into my page. So we've got 290. So 145 is going to be the center of my page. Now, if you can't find that exactly, you can let go, then select the guideline and come up to the top left-hand corner and type 145, enter. Okay, so this is going to be my center line in my page, and it won't show up on the final saved document. So I want my images to be quite large on the page. There are going to be 3 of them. So this is at 145. So I'm going to bring, I'm going to click on my ruler across the top of my page again and bring that down. And I'm going to pop that at the 100 millimeter mark. I'm then going to come down further, and I'm going to pop this one at the 200 millimeter mark. So I'm starting to create guides for where my images are going to go. Now, I can also do this vertically running across the page. If I move my mouse to the left-hand side, I can see the ruler sitting here. If I click and drag out from this side, we can see, okay, there is my guideline coming across again. Our line running through the middle here. So I'm going to add a few different picture boxes to within these guidelines that I've drawn. So on the left hand side here, I'm going to come to the option that looks like a rectangle with a cross through it. This is called my rectangle frame tool. So I'm going to select this, and as soon as I click, I can drag out and we can see a rectangle or a square start to appear. I'm using those guidelines to place my mouse as well. Okay. Now I have the box that I've drawn here. I'm going to come back to my toolset on the left hand side to the very top arrow, and then I can move this shape wherever I want. Now as I move it around, we will start to see some different guidelines appear. So we can see these pink guidelines, so that's the center of my page. So in this case, I'm going to line this up so it's nice and central. I can then move the guidelines or delete the guidelines, it's whatever I prefer, to suit this image. So this is nice and central now. Now if I want to see what that looks like, my image box looks like without the guidelines, I can select it and press W on my keyboard, and it gives me a preview, okay, of the shape. So I want 3 images that are going to be the same size. So I've selected this image frame, and I'm going to do copy and paste on my keyboard. So Control C, Control V if you're on a PC, or Command C, Command V if you're on a Mac. And I'm going to move my image or my rectangle frame tool across. Okay. I'm then going to paste again and move it to the left hand side this time. Now, as I move this rectangle frame tool across, you will see a green arrow start to appear when they are equal distance apart on either side of that central image. So now that it is in the correct position, I can see I've got my 3 image frames here as well. Now, whenever you're putting together an assessment or submission document or research document or anything like that, you must reference any images that you use. So these are photographs that I have taken, which is often the case when we're working in design. You might have gone on a holiday, you might have gone to a museum, you might have been doing some research and taken a photograph of different items. So what I'm going to do is add a text box under each image. So on the left hand side of my screen, I'm coming to my tool sets, and on the very left hand side here I can see a large T, and this is our text tool. So I'm going to select this first of all, and from the very bottom of my image, first image on the left, so the bottom left hand corner, I'm going to click and draw out a rectangle that is the same width as my image to start with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type my generic information first of all. So it needs to have a figure number, and then it's going to have an image title, and this must be in italics. Okay, so I can change that in a minute. Now, when we are putting together design presentations, our font choice is really important. My preference is to use a sans serif font, so that we don't have any of those tails sticking out there. So, and this is also because I do a lot of drafting in AutoCAD, and it means that I can use the same font across both. Okay, so I'm going to choose Century Gothic here. It's a nice clear font, and under my options across the top, when I've highlighted my text, it's currently the Century Gothic font, and then the type is italics underneath that. Okay, so now that I have got my text box here, I'm going to again copy it. So I've selected it, Command C, Command V, Control C, Control V if you're on a PC, and I'm going to do the same again and placing it under each of my images. So now what I need to do is add those images in. So you need to make sure that you have the images you want saved first of all, and you know where they have been saved from or where you took them. And then the other thing is you need a folder on your computer saved so that they can't move. So on my computer here, I've got a folder called image referencing. Now, if this was for an assessment, I would have an assessment folder, and then within that, I would say assessment 2 images. Okay, and so that can't move, so that's where it is. So I'm coming back to InDesign. I'm going to select my first rectangle frame box, and I'm going to type Control D on my keyboard. And this is the place command in InDesign. I'm then going to navigate to my desktop, double click on my folder, and I'm going to choose my first image here. So I've chosen it, and I'm going to click open, and it will really fill that frame. So now I need to change those fitting options for this image so I can see everything. So I'm going to right click on the image, and I'm going to choose fitting, and I can choose fill frame proportionally. Okay, and we can see part of that image here. Now I want to see a little bit more of this image at the top, so it's being cut off. So in InDesign we have 2 editing options. So at the moment we can see this rectangle frame or this image is selected, and it's got a blue outline. If I double click, you can then see what looks like a kind of a dark red or orange brown outline. This is the actual size of the image. So if I then move the image down further, we can see the top of the image appear. If I wanted to, I can also resize the frame, but in this case, I want all my images to be the same size. What I then need to do is deactivate this selection, so I'm just going to click in the white space, and we can see that that has disappeared. So I'm now going to edit my text, so I'm going to double click where my text is. So this is figure 1. and this is called a gable. Okay. And I took this in 2016. So I'm going to pop that in here. The next, I'm going to come to my next image, Control D, Command D if you're on a Mac. I'm going to choose my next image. Again, right click, and I'm going to say fitting, fill frame proportionally. So here we can see it. The other option I have is fill content, fit content proportionally. Okay, so it's looking like this. The option you choose depends on what you're trying to achieve. Then I'm going to edit my text again. So this is figure 2, and this is a door. And again, I took this in 2016. Finally, I'm going to click on the last rectangular frame I drew, Control D or Command D. I'm going to choose my final image, right click, and I'm going to say fitting, fit content proportionally, and then double click on my text. Okay. I'm going to come back to my first image and actually change those fitting options. You can always come back as well. Now, if I want to check what this looks like, I can press W on my keyboard. And again, it takes away all of those guidelines. So these aren't sitting quite correctly yet. I want to move my text across. So I'm going to press W so I can see my guides. Now, to make the guides smaller for both the text and the image, we can select the frame and then double click on the edges. So for my text here, I've selected the text box, double click from a corner, and you can see it makes that text box nice and small. Now I'm going to move that text box across so it's in line with the left hand side of my image, and then I'm going to move it down. Now in this case, I'm going to create an additional guide that is a few millimeters below. So I've selected this bottom line where my windows are, where my images are, and that's telling me that's at 198.5. Okay. I'm going to click the top of my screen and drag down another guideline, and I'm going to place this at the 200 mark, and then use that to move my text or align it. So I'm going to repeat this process for every image and piece of text that I have. And as you start to move things around, you will see that InDesign shows you some additional green guides to make sure that everything is in fact aligned. If you wish to move two things at once, you hold Shift and select both items, and then you can move them both at the same time. So this time I'm going to press W again, and we can see now I have my 3 images nicely set up on my screen with their figure number and their title. You can always make this smaller as well, as long as it is legible. Okay, so I could always come in, double click, highlight, and change this to a 10 if I wanted to, or even an 8. Okay. So it just depends what the presentation style that you are going to use throughout your submission document. Now, these images were taken by me, so all I need to do is figure them, give them a figure number and a caption or a title. If these were taken in a museum or I've downloaded them from a website, I would then also need to include a reference list, okay, with more detail about where I found those images. The final piece of information that I need to include on my page here is a reference as to where I found this terminology. So this is a gable, this roofline here is a gable, this is a door, and this is an archway. I know this because I have been studying, and we have been looking at different resources, and one of those is a visual dictionary of architecture. So we are going to need to reference that. Now, a lot of online databases have an area that you can copy a reference from If not, I recommend visiting your university library website, and they will go through the type of referencing that you need to use. Every university or educational institution often will use different types of referencing options. I'm going to use APA 7th. So I'm going to copy this piece of text and I'm going to run it along the bottom of my page here. First of all, I'm going to double click, and the first thing I need to do is put the author. Okay. The next thing I need to do is add the year of publication. After that, I'm putting a full stop so that year of publication is in brackets. Then, using italics, I am going to type the title. So we've got a visual dictionary of architecture. And then, as you can see, my text is bigger than my box, so a little red plus has appeared on the right-hand side. I'm just going to come to my selection tool, double click, and then drag out this box even further. Okay, so we can see that information. Then double click to get back into my option here. Now I need to put in my source. So this could be an ebook from online. This could be the physical copy of this textbook. It just depends on exactly what you have. So here, this is an ebook version. So I'm coming in. This part should not be in italics. And then I'm going to pop in the URL. Once I've popped in that URL, once I've popped in the URL, I can right click and choose hyperlink, new hyperlink. Okay, here it is, and I'm going to click OK. And you can see it becomes blue with that underline. Again, I'm going to drag out my entire text box here so it is the whole option, and I'm just going to center this. Now the reason I've done this is because I only am using one page at this particular point in time. If I had a multi-page document, I would have to have a reference list at the end, and this is where that reference list would go. Okay, if you wanted to do that in this page, you can always use your properties here on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, and add a new page. And I can move my reference across. And then I can also add a title here for reference list. Okay. I generally like my titles to be size 16 or 14, and then my main text should be about a 12. Again, I can press W and that will get rid of those guidelines. So I'm going to come back to my images now. So now that I have placed my photographs and I've given them a figure number and a title, what I need to do is I need to save this, first of all, as an InDesign document, and then save it as a PDF as well. So I'm going to click File, Save, and I want to save it on my computer. Where you save it is entirely up to you. So I'm going to come to Desktop, and I'm going to call it Image Referencing _ Practice. It's an InDesign document, so that's saved. I'm then going to come and click File, Export, and there are a few different options here. I'm going to say Adobe PDF Print. Image Referencing _ Practice is fine. I'm saving it in the same location, so on my desktop, and I'm going to click Save. At the moment, I'm going to keep these settings as they are because it is a small file. There's only a few things in it, so I don't need to worry about the file size, and I'm going to click Export. Once that has successfully been exported, you will see it appear on your desktop. Now, a PDF will, if you double click on it, it will open in your PDF viewer. So that might be Adobe Acrobat, that might be Preview. There's quite a few different options. So we can see here are my images referenced correctly with my reference list at the end. Okay. An InDesign document saves as a .indd file. This is the native InDesign format. So we want to keep that on your computer as part of your submission folder so that you've got it so you can always come back to it if you ever need to edit what you're working on for your portfolio or make any changes that your lecturer or client gives you through feedback. If you have any questions, please let me know. This is how we set up an InDesign file, add photographs that are our own, title them, number them, and then add a reference for the information as well.